Hey there folks, and welcome to Truck King. This is the Toyota Tundra Limited Nightshade Edition, and it's all about looking good. Now we're gonna go over those details, but in this video, we're also going to put it to work. We're gonna hook up a 7,000-pound trailer, and we're gonna load it up right to payload capacity, and we're gonna tell you all about it, so make sure you stay tuned. Let's start by looking at the heart of this truck. So right here we have the I-Force engine. That's a 3.5 liter twin turbocharged V6. Here it makes 389 horsepower and 479 pound-feet of torque sent through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Folks, I have to jump in right here and interrupt myself to tell you about the recently announced Toyota Tundra recall. Yes, about 100,000 Tundras fit with this 3.5 liter twin turbo V6 are being recalled. And no, the hybrids are not affected, at least for now. Right now, it's just these gas trucks. So we will put up the detailed description of the problem here if you want to read through it, but I'll just summarize for you. Essentially, there was a cleaning process that wasn't good enough, and it was allowing metal debris to get inside the engine. Now, if that debris adheres to one of the main bearings, those bearings will fail, and that can lead to knocking, rough running, or just a total stall. So I'll give you some of the numbers. Toyota says there's 98,568 Tundras affected and 3,524 Lexus LXs. Now, if you go over to the NHTSA website, that's the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, you can get a really detailed report from Toyota, including a timeline on when they started to receive the failure notices, how they started tearing down engines, comparing good engines to bad engines to figure out what the problems are. I encourage you to go check out that info. I appreciate that Toyota released so much info on the recall. Now, let me get to maybe the most important part. What are they going to do about it? Right now, they don't know. Toyota says they are informing owners right now, but they're still working on a remedy. Of course, for owners, that's frustrating and definitely bad news. I think the only good part of this is just seeing how much detail Toyota gave us so we really intimately understand this problem. Now, let's get back to our Toyota Tundra Nightshade review. Now, while the hood is open, I just have to point out one funny thing. There's a little Easter egg under the hood of every Tundra. On the driver's side here, it says born in Texas. On the passenger side, it says R&D in Michigan. But what's kind of making me laugh is right next to the born in Texas is a plastic shroud that comes from Mexico, and it says Mexico right on it. So yeah, they're reminding you that parts come from all over the world, even though, yes, this thing is built in Texas. I don't know, just seeing them next to each other made me laugh. Now let's go over what you get in the Nightshade package. So first of all, our truck today is finished in magnetic gray metallic. And then when you go for the Nightshade Limited, you're getting TRD Sport 20-inch alloy wheels, obviously blacked out. You're also getting the black grille, black over fenders, and a black rear bumper combined with a body color grille surround and gloss black belt molding. The exterior door handles and the tailgate handle, you guessed it, also black. And then you get a semi-black 4x4 badge and the Tundra name badges. So, I mean, if you didn't get the point already, it's blacked out. Now, I wish our truck today was a different color because it doesn't really stand out on the gray, but still, I think it looks pretty sharp. So why don't you drop in the comments right now and let me know what you think of the styling here on the Nightshade. There's some other features which aren't about the styling which come along with our limited Nightshade as well. Things like a power tilting and sliding moonroof, heated and ventilated Softex seats, a driver's seat memory system with memory mirrors, Toyota multimedia featuring the 14-inch touchscreen. You're getting that tailgate release bump switch at the back end, a wireless charging dock for your cell phones, and a 400-watt outlet in the bed. Let's take a look underneath this Tundra, folks. So the first thing I usually point out are the front tow hooks. And here, as you probably know, there are none. But this is actually a great view to sort of explain that. Toyota says that in order to accommodate this drop-down plastic air dam, they couldn't have the tow hooks. So this thing will actually deploy once the truck is at speed. It folds down, and it will help you achieve better aerodynamics and therefore better fuel economy. Now, what I like about it is, yeah, it tucks itself up out of the way. So at slow speeds, if you are off-road or in some sort of rough environment, you don't have to worry about catching the air dam. But yes, the downside is they say because of that, they could not get tow hooks from the frame through the front end. Now, I can actually see the frame ends right up here. So it does seem to me like they could have maybe put a little extension on right here to get through to the bumper. That was just something they couldn't figure out. And yes, they've caught a lot of flack for it because it's not just an off-road thing. I even always go, you know what, you want tow hooks because if you get stuck, you want to pull the truck out. But what if you just want to pull something else, someone else's truck out? What if you want to drag a log off the trail, something like that? Then the front tow hooks really are necessary and important. So it's kind of unfortunate that, yeah, we missed them here on the Tundra. Now, as we roll back, again, this is not an off-road truck, so basically no skid plates under here, but that's okay because you get easy access. Of course, independent front suspension, no axle up here. As we roll back, you see the oil pan. Moving further back, we get this large gas tank right here above my head. Then you get to your rear differential, a huge prop shaft here in the center to take the power to the back. And yeah, I mentioned the suspension. In the back, we get coilovers. No more leaf springs in the back of your Tundra. You can see your stabilizer bar back there as well. And then at the very back, you are getting a full-size spare tire. So there's that neat button incorporated into the light which drops your tailgate. I think this is useful if you do have your hands full. You can, get an elbow on it, or if you really stretch, get a knee up on it. Now, the one annoying thing, it's only on the driver's side here on the Tundra. You can't get it on the passenger side. Obviously, they got some feedback on that, though, because with the new Tacoma, you get these bed drop or tailgate drop switches on both sides of the truck. So yes, they learned. Now, the bed you're looking at right here is a 5.5 foot. This is just the short bed. And the one thing that makes Toyota's beds different, they are composite. So no steel back here, no aluminum, nothing like that. It is this composite plastic. Now the positives here, it's not gonna rust. It's not gonna wear out nearly as quickly as most metal beds will. And then what I like is if you take a gouge out of this, if you actually kind of really get into it, you're just gonna expose more of that composite plastic. Unlike especially a steel painted bed when you're gonna expose bare metal, and then that's gonna start to corrode. So yes, I do like this. It should be a long-lasting bed. I think the biggest downside is how slippery it is when it's wet. Now, it does have a bit of a texture to it. Toyota doesn't leave it totally just slick plastic, but even still, in the wintertime, in the wet, it gets really slippery. Some people like that, some people don't. Depends what you do with your bed. Me personally, I don't love it. I like having a spray-in bed liner where you really get that, hard sort of material which will hold on to things. Now, next, the other feature I want to show you is right here. That is a 400 watt plug, but yeah, still nice to have 400 watts and have a plug at the back of your truck. Now finally, let's talk about the numbers on how hard this thing works. So with our limited Crew Max here today, non-hybrid, we can tow up to 11,170 pounds off of the 2-inch hitch receiver. And let's go take a look at the payload at the door jamb. Toyota says this truck will carry 1,390 pounds. Not a terrible number, but we're going to put it to the test right now. All right, folks, now here we are driving in this Tundra Limited Nightshade Edition. And as I told you we would do, we have overloaded it. In the back, we have just over 1,100 pounds of payload. There's 12 rubber mats at 97 pounds apiece. And then, of course, up here with Dad and I and with Liam in the back, we are absolutely over that 1,300 pound payload number. And I think, like usual, the disclaimer is I will never recommend you go over the number, but I do think in testing it's important sometime to go over a bit and just feel, is that really an absolute payload number, or does it feel like you could go higher? So at this point, Dad, I'll toss to you. How do you feel? Does the truck feel overloaded, overworked, anything like that?
Well, let me first of all say that engineers at all the truck companies are truck guys, meaning they know that you're gonna overload your truck. It just happens. Okay, you go down the road and wow, there's an engine block sitting there that nobody wants. You know you're going to throw that in the back. So the point being is that they give you a real sweet safety margin. And the way that I feel it, like right now, where we're what, 200 pounds overweight?
Roughly.
Is that the suspension is still working the way it's supposed to. There's still give in the back. We're nowhere near the point where this thing's like flat, flush, sitting on the axles. So, yeah, take it for what it's worth. We don't recommend that you ever overload anything. You should listen to what the manufacturers say, but also realize that they know we're all human and we're gonna do it.
Yep, and that was my experience driving it too. The nose feels a tiny bit high, but the steering doesn't feel at all bad. The one thing I will tell you to do is hit the brakes, because that's where I did feel it. They feel pretty good, but they do feel a little bit more work. You feel it behind you.
Well, you're digging a little deeper than I normally would. Like you get to that point where it's like, okay, we should be okay, and then you need to go a little farther. But
Right.
hey, listen, you know, it's weight, man. It's inertia.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep, fair enough. So I think it's safe to say that, yeah, this Tundra at the limit, no problem at all at that payload number. I do wish the payload number was a little higher. It's always nice to see closer to 1,500 pounds out of a half ton, but still, it's nice to know that if you do go over by a little bit, you're fine. We're back in the yard now. We're gonna unload the payload, so I figured we should measure the squat. So the weight is in there right now, and again, I'll tell you, it's just a little over 1,100 pounds. So we're not going to move the truck. And that bottom fender, that's exactly 3 feet, 36 inches. So now we'll unload the weight and we'll measure again and we'll find out how much it was squatting. All right, now again, truck hasn't moved. We can remeasure, center of the tire. And that is now at just a little tiny bit over 39 inches. Which is actually 3 inches of squat, which I'll be honest is a little more than I would expect. Usually 1,000 pounds on a half ton is 2 inches of squat. We've measured this with tons of trucks. That is generally the rule of thumb. So yeah, 3 inches of squat is a little bit more than what I would have expected. But don't forget, the Tundra no longer has leaf springs in the back. It uses coil over suspension. So I think that has a lot to do with why it would squat more than a truck with leaves. And now it's time to back into our trailer so we can look at the camera systems here. This is just the basic camera system here on the Tundra, so you're not getting a lot of views. We get this full screen view and then sort of this wide view. So look, you can watch Dad walking right there. If I switch over here, you lose him, and then there he is again. So the wide view does make a pretty nice difference. The one thing I'm a little bit surprised at, to be honest, is that there's no, oh my gosh, what's he doing back there? Friggin' Sasquatch. So anyway, so we have our guidelines you can turn on and off. There's your predictive hitch line, which I like. But there's no zoom in on the hitch, which has become, you know, very standard these days. So I'm a little surprised that there's no zoomed in view. Now that being said, I can still see the hitch plenty. And I should be able to line it up just like so. So yeah, it works okay, looks all right, but yeah, I'm just a little surprised it doesn't have that zoomed in view on the hitch. Now let's go hook up. Alrighty folks, now we are going to test 0 to 60, actually 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, or 0 to 62 miles per hour with 7,000 pounds on the back. So Dad, on go. 3, 2, 1, go. $60, $70, $80, $90, $100. Well, that felt okay. It's certainly not the big rush of power you get out of the hybrid, but still felt strong. And that was a 14.5 0 to 100 kilometer an hour time with the trailer on. And now we can throw up the leaderboard so you can see how that compares. All right, folks, so you saw the 0 to 60. Now we're actually going to do it one more time, but this time in regular tow mode, not tow plus. So ready, Dad? 3, 2, 1, go. $100. And according to the stopwatch, that was a 14.6. So just slightly slower than with tow plus mode, which is pretty interesting. So let's just talk about that. Tundra is one of the only, if not the only truck that offers 2 different tow haul modes, regular tow haul and then tow plus. And Toyota says the difference, or sort of the line, is 5,000 pounds. If you're over 5,000, which we are, you should have it in tow plus mode. If you're under, leave it in tow mode. And I don't know, seat of the pants, I didn't feel a massive difference, but based on the stopwatch, I would say tow plus probably just holds your gears a little bit longer. You're getting higher RPM, slightly more power, therefore a bit of stronger acceleration. Would you say that's probably the difference?
Sure, this is an engineer who goes, we don't need all that if you're under 5,000 pounds, so why keep your revs higher
Sure.
than you need them? In other words, you know, it's a fuel economy thing, but I think we're really splitting hairs now.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You know what? Yeah, we didn't really notice it in the 0 to 60, right? Slight difference. But I think in the fuel economy, that's where it's going to come into play, because they're going, yeah, tow haul mode, if you just have a tiny little trailer on, it's overkill. There's no reason to be revving up so high. So I think over time, you'd probably see the difference in fuel economy. So it's nice to know that they're at least paying attention to those things, because that is a pretty kind of minute detail, right?
Exactly, and like with Toyota, they pay attention to the details.
Yeah.
Of course, sometimes they get a little caught up in them, but that's, you know, I'd rather have it than not.
Sure. Yep, that sounds about right. So yeah, we got our 7,000 pound trailer on. Tow rating here is just over 11,000 pounds. So, you know, we're not near the rating. We're not stressing it too much. I'll tell you from the passenger seat, it feels good. The engine, I won't call it straight linear power, because you do feel a bit of a lack off the line, and then you feel the turbo come on. But basically, once the turbo's really going through the shifts, it actually is fairly linear feeling, fairly smooth power. It just doesn't give you that real hit off the line that you get out of, you know, a naturally aspirated V8, or of course the hybrid version of this truck. So that was the only thing. That's not even barely a complaint about the power plant, but that's the one thing I did feel. It just doesn't have that real low end grunt that, you know, we kind of expect, because we feel it in so many other trucks.
I actually want to talk about the suspension, because having had the trailer on now, the payload earlier, and having driven it empty, I really have kind of come to the conclusion that this is, amongst all the manufacturers, probably the softest suspension.
Yeah, it is fairly soft. And you know what? We criticized Ram for many years because they got rid of the leaf springs. So that truck was known to squat more than every other half ton out there. And Toyota's gone the same way. They got rid of the leafs, and it definitely squats quite a bit. I don't know. I guess, what does it feel like from behind the wheel? Because from over here, it does feel a bit squishy, which kind of doesn't lend itself to confidence, right?
Yeah, when I say soft, and that's what I mean, is it's a little bit floaty. And it's just this kind of, you know, a little bit wobbly, marshmallow feeling. None of this is a bad thing, but I'm just simply comparing it to the other major brands that are significantly stiffer. Now, good news, bad news. When you're towing, it's going to be pronounced. However, when you're running empty, which, let's face it, 95% of the time guys are running empty, it's going to be a better ride.
Sure, and I will say, yes, the day-to-day ride on this Tundra over the previous generation massively improved. You're absolutely right. So running empty, it is better. And yeah, I think we can admit, we know that that's what they prioritize too. So then trailering after the fact is like, yeah, you might have given up some of the confidence in trailering, but I'm sure Toyota was okay making that trade-off for the everyday drivability.
Yeah, frankly, you can't do it any other way. This is a fight that every manufacturer has had for eons. How stiff do you make the truck?
Yeah.
How sprung is it, based on the fact that at some point you're going to put weight on it, which means that when it's empty, it bucks like a mule, and it only feels good when it's loaded, but most people are not loaded most of the time. So, you know, we're coming to that realization, and I think most of the manufacturers, as you mentioned, Ram, and then of course Toyota now has said, okay, let's go in that direction and make people comfortable when the thing is empty.
Yeah. Well, folks, we have arrived at the end of this one. Now, I do have to answer one last crucial question. What does it cost? Well, here in Canada, the truck you just watched in this video will sell for just over $71,000. So yeah, that's it for this one. I think the Tundra performed well today. It's definitely a little bit different than I would say the trucks are from the big three, and that might make you like it more or less, but that's up to you to decide. So now please drop in the comments. Let me know what you think of everything you saw in this video. Let me know your thoughts on the Tundra, the Nightshade edition. Do you like all the blacked out stuff? I want to hear from you. And while you're down there dropping that comment, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member of Truck King. Oh yeah, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a Truck King video. And then come right back here to the channel to see what we're testing next. See ya.